All right, World Cruisers. It is Sunday, August 4th, 2024. We're on the Ultimate World Cruise and we are just sailing into Stockholm, Sweden. And this is a time lapse of the beautiful passage from the Baltic into Stockholm. There are literally thousands of islands on this passage, and there's homes on many of them and little harbors. uh, Incredibly beautiful. So today we're going to go to a museum of a ship that sank in 1628, and an open air museum that has some early 1900 period stores that show what life was like in Stockholm back in those days. Stockholm is about 1,000 years old, roughly, and so it's a very modern, beautiful city. Little damage during the war. So we hopped on a bus. This is a hop-on, hop-off bus on our way over to the Vasa Museum, where that ship called the Vasa has its own special museum. It's one of the most interesting museums I've ever seen anywhere in the world. But you can see the city's beautiful, modern buildings, beautiful architecture, tree-lined streets and parks. The one on the left there is beautiful. You'll see more of the outside of Stockholm tomorrow when we take a canal trip, but today we're going to mostly do inside stuff. So here's the ship called the Vasa that was sunk on August 10th, 1628, after sailing roughly a little less than 1 mile after they launched it. And they apparently didn't know how to calculate center of gravity, or didn't put enough ballast in the bottom of the ship or something, because after they launched it, it was full of crew and family. It sailed less than a mile and the wind blew it over. And since all the cannon doors were open, it took on water immediately and sunk. So it stayed on the bottom for 333 years until they raised it in 1961. And it took them many years to get it restored to the shape that it's in now. But it's 95% original, which is really quite amazing for a ship built in 1628. So here's a scale model of what the ship looked like. And supposedly they built a sister ship after this one sank that was a meter wider. Probably had more ballast, and it was in service for 30 years, but this one was in service for less than a mile. But the good news was that it sunk in this area of the Baltic that has such brackish water. The salt concentration is not high enough to support the worms that eat wood. So when they recovered it, it is almost perfectly intact. This is the bow. They had models of Caesars. Those guys standing up there were different Caesars carved in wood. This is the bow. You can see the lion there. When I edited it, I cut off a little bit of the lion's head, but it's an amazing ship, and it's the most accurately restored of any ship of that era in the world, because it was in that brackish water that didn't support the worm growth, so all the wood was in pretty good shape. And they restored it by bringing it to the surface and then soaking it in polyethylene glycol, which is the same as engine antifreeze. And the polyethylene glycol replaced the water that had soaked into the wood, and it allowed it to dry without the wood cracking up and getting ruined. So this is the back of the ship where the captain's cabin would have been. But you can see the carvings that are restored are absolutely amazing on the back of this thing. It is still mind-boggling to me how they could build a ship this big and this heavy in the 1600s. There's all that elaborate woodwork on the back that is beautifully preserved. This is a scale model of the great room that was on the deck of the ship where not the captain, but the other senior officers lived. 8 guys lived in this room, and there were fold-out beds along those walls. They could sleep 4 at a time. Still just amazing. So this says that if you draw a sword against one of your shipmates, you lose your life if you injure him, and if not, you get your hand split open. And if you talk back to the captain, quartermaster, you get keel hauled either 1, 2, or 3 times. So life was pretty strict. The rules were strict on the ships. Here's a couple of perfectly restored cannons. They were like, I don't know, it's 23, probably 40. So there's probably more than 50 cannons on that ship in total, between the sides and the front and the back. Then after we left the Vasa Museum, we took a walk over to the Open Air Museum and past this amusement park. So they do have a nice amusement park for the kids on this island. It's out in the middle of Stockholm Bay. We're on our way to this Open Air Museum, which is like a city with period built stuff. And this is the glass blowing shop, where I spent a good half hour watching them make this lamp. That's going to be a electric lamp cover. And this gal probably paid to have a glass blowing experience, and they were teaching her how to make this lamp. Now he scored it, and then he's gonna get it wet so it cracks right there, and then they're gonna stick it in the tempering oven. She's gonna smack it with that tool, and it's gonna come off the pole in the tempering oven. There it goes. So the next was the machine shop. They had 2 like DC motors that ran these belts that powered everything in the machine shop. So I guess this is probably early 1900s. They had lathes and mills and all sorts of things. They had a engine block on one of the machine, the boring machine, I think, that they were working on. So then in the evening, I went to this get together that some of the ship, our crew member, our fellow cruisers had at the ice bar. It's a bar where everything's made of ice, tables and chairs, the bar. Kept it like, I don't know, 5 below 0 or some ridiculously cold number. Anyway, it was fun. See what it looked like. So stay tuned tomorrow for day 2 in Stockholm, where we're going to take a canal trip and see some of the many bridges that go over the bay.